Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the western seaboard of the coast of British Columbia, Canada. A remote timber operation in the rugged and forested hillside near a place called Draney Inlet off of the River Inlet area is our destination. The west coast of Canada is the largest temperate rainforest in the world and is only one of 7 around the planet. This designation means that the area receives more than 55 inches of rainfall each year, providing an abundance of plant life that directly or indirectly supports an abundance of animal life. The forest canopy consists of towering pine, fir, cedar, and spruce trees that cast a protective shade over the rhododendron, maple, and dogwood trees in the lower canopy. Berry bushes include salmon berries and blackberries, plus a few more. In this wet and mild environment, mosses, mushrooms, and other fungi thrive while consuming the dead plant mass that gathers on the forest floors. Common animals in this area include Roosevelt elk, moose, and black-tailed deer. To keep these forest plant browsers' populations in check, the predators of the area include cougars, wolves, black bears, and grizzly bears. The month of March is a transitional time for the grizzlies of this area. Any snow that may have accumulated is melting off, which allows the nutritious sedge grass and other plants to grow. Feeding on spring sprouts is a vital part of grizzly seasonal cycles, as the grass provides needed vitamins and minerals depleted during hibernation, and the fiber in the grass cleanses their digestive system. It is also the time when protective sows bring their little cubs out to learn the life skills she will instill in them over the next few years. Sows are extremely protective during this time and are a danger to humans and male bears alike. When grizzlies emerge from their dens, they are essentially starving, having not eaten for months. Given that the salmon runs may be several weeks away, if they don't find food soon after emerging, they may not fatten up fast enough for the next hibernation. They depend on the forest for their livelihood, just like Ryan Arsenault did. He was a forest engineer with Capacity Forest Management for the past 8 years. Ryan would spend part of his time working from the corporate office, but the rest of his time he was out at the remote logging camps, marking trees selected for harvest. He's from a small town on the east side of Vancouver Island called Campbell River, which is where his wife and 2 young daughters stayed. Ryan would happily reunite with his family when he wasn't working at the remote camps, but while he was out there, he worked very hard. In his role with the company, Ryan would assess the cutting zone, which is the portion of the forest the company was targeting to pull timber from. After that, he would go through and paint or tape tree species that the timber company was permitted to harvest. The company placed a lot of trust in Ryan, and he was considered part of the heart and soul of the organization. It is hard to imagine that such a beautiful place would present or conceal any danger, but Ryan and his logging teams routinely ran into black bears and grizzly bears. The bears never seemed interested in being around people, and if you saw them at all, you saw them leaving. They simply had too much food in their habitat to even consider stalking a human being, which would be far from their typical fare in the forest. At around 10:30 a.m. of March 22, 2017, Ryan worked his way through a stand of trees as he maintained visual contact with his 4 other crewmen. Company policy required a close working distance to prevent injuries and ensure their workers were safe and accounted for. The crewmen hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary. They heard no growls or roars. There were no grizzly tracks or scat that they found. None of them saw the enraged grizzly that appeared out of nowhere, only a few yards from Ryan. As soon as Ryan saw the grizzly, he hid behind the only tree he could find, which is a very small pine tree. Ryan tried to startle the angry bear by yelling and screaming at it as it approached him. Nothing Ryan could do seemed to dissuade the grizzly as it charged toward him. He lifted his heavy logging boots and kicked the grizzly right in the muzzle, but all that did was give the bear Ryan's right leg to pull him down with. The bear drove him onto his back before any of the other crewmen could react. The other loggers looked on in horror as the bear clamped onto Ryan's lower right leg, shattering his fibula bone as it did so in a single bite. The grizzly quickly switched its attack to Ryan's head and tore a huge gash across his scalp. Ryan threw his hands up around his head, hoping that the bear would spare him any more pain. Bears aren't known for acknowledging the pain of their prey, though. The grizzly drove its enormous canines right through Ryan's wrist as he feebly tried to protect his skull from being crushed. The entire time the bear was breaking Ryan's bones and tearing his flesh with its jaws, its claws were raking him all over his upper torso. Fortunately for him, his thick work vest bore the brunt of nearly all of it and spared him additional trauma. The 5 lumber workers were not unprepared for this. The company issued them bear spray to use in just this kind of instance. It just happened so quickly that they couldn't respond before the bear inflicted crippling damage on Ryan's body. As the others watched Ryan scream and fight with the grizzly, one of them dug through the pocket of a small pack, searching for the bear spray. Once he took hold of it, he let out a primal holler as he ran toward the bear while directing the orange cloud into the bear's face. As soon as the bear lifted its head from Ryan and its nostrils and eyes filled with the bear spray, it began coughing and gagging. The bear spray had a potent and immediate effect on the bear as it broke off the attack on Ryan and took refuge in the nearby brush. His fellow crewmen rushed to Ryan's side as he lay on his back in obvious and severe pain. The large laceration on his scalp poured blood, and the injuries to his wrist and lower right leg left his limbs non-functional and bent abnormally in places. After quickly assessing Ryan's injuries, the other crewmen radioed their base and requested a helicopter to his location. They administered first aid as best they could while they waited for its arrival. Given the rugged and steep terrain, the helicopter couldn't land near Ryan, so they carried a stretcher downhill for 3 hours to get to him. As the first aid crew approached Ryan's location with the stretcher, the grizzly emerged from the brush and charged toward them. There were several men in this group, and that seemed to be a good reason for the grizzly to break off its attack on them. It seemed confused as it turned back into the brush and disappeared. The medical team loaded Ryan onto the stretcher after checking out his wounds. The helicopter immediately flew Ryan to the medical center at Port Hardy, where he received a blood transfusion, as well as staples to close the gash on his scalp. Shortly after that, he was flown to the Victoria General Hospital in Victoria, BC, for antibiotic treatment and further surgical repair to his broken bones and shredded tissues in his arm and right leg. The medical staff at both facilities described Ryan's wounds as major injuries and very serious. Ryan had a prolonged recovery, with many months of painful and difficult physical rehabilitation before regaining basic function and use of his injured arm and right leg. I could find no source indicating if Ryan terminated his employment with the logging company, so it's assumed that he remained with the organization. Immediately after the bear attack, Capacity Forest Management worked with wildlife officials to deploy a specialized predator attack team to conduct an investigation. They could not locate the bear, as it had fled following the second attack on the crewmen. The logging company acted very quickly in response to the attack by providing trauma counseling to the crewmen. Ryan's family had some difficulty in dealing with the implications of his grizzly attack, but were comforted by the knowledge that he would survive. If the timber company hadn't taken the proactive steps of training their loggers how to handle confrontations with wildlife and how to dispense bear spray, Ryan's situation may have easily ended in his death. A company spokesman stated that this was a purpose-driven bear that had a reason for being where it was. This ominous statement shed light on what they believed was the nature of the attack. They expressed gratitude for the brave response of Ryan's fellow crewmen and that the bear was unable to get his head in its mouth as it tried to do. British Columbia Conservation Service officer Scott Norris described the attack as a major attack and stated that it wasn't cut and dry in terms of what would be the response to the bear's behavior. A biologist who specialized in carnivores was consulted to understand the bear's behavior. He noted that given there were no cubs observed during either of the bear's attacks on the crewmen, it is doubted to be a sow protecting her cubs. A further assumption was made that it was the same bear that attacked Ryan as well as charged the rescue party. They concluded that bears don't typically hunt humans, so jumping to the conclusion that it attacked out of hunger may be an errant decision. The Ministry of Environment decided after much consideration that the bear was acting defensively and that it would not be destroyed. It didn't try to claim Ryan as its food cache and didn't return to the attack site. But this was biased based on the intervention of his co-workers. The bear may have returned had they not intervened in such a powerful and brave manner. They decided to let it live and hope it would have no further hostile interactions with humans. In 2018, authorities estimated that there were 14,925 grizzlies in all of British Columbia. Now that seems to be a pretty precise number to me, and I have to wonder about the methods they used to arrive at this tally. In the year 2015 alone, there were 4 grizzly attacks on humans. Since 1984, there have been 6 human fatalities due to grizzly bear attacks and 94 injuries recorded in British Columbia alone. That roughly calculates out to 1 human fatality every 6.2 years, and about 2 injuries each year from grizzlies. After reviewing the details of Ryan Arsenault's grizzly bear mauling, I'm left with a few questions for you. Do you think that bear attacked out of predatory or defensive motives? Given the speed of the attack, do you think a firearm would have prevented this attack? Are you surprised that the logging company didn't provide shotguns loaded with slugs as well as bear spray for the crewman's safety? Why do you think there are so many bear attacks on loggers? I'll gladly read and respond to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.